I am in fact not Winter's SEO. I'm just as shocked about that as you are. I am in fact Quipster. And me and Winters have started this new lore series where we can talk about really niche parts of the lore that basically only we're interested in. The next part of the Siege of Terra series came out recently and me and Winters smashed it in a few days. And he texted me and he was like, we've got to talk about this immediately. And we did. This is that discussion. I apologize it's taken a little bit of time to get this out. I've been quite ill recently. But yeah, this is that discussion.
Did with, what are they called? Den of Imagination. Those are both doing really well.
Yeah, they're both doing very well. The one that I did, the STD that I did with Warsmith Chris, not as much, not as popular. So it's glad to be... Well, yeah, I mean, I feel like that's like the Jedi Master trying to guide a youngling, not even a Padawan. Whereas here, it's Malcador and Magnus having a chat again. The deep, deep lore masters.
Indeed. Also, the thumbnail doesn't have your face on it.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, but it has your face on it, which, yeah, you know, that's a lovely face. You have a chin. You have a superhero's chin. My chin sort of fades into my neck, but your chin, you have a Henry Cavill chin. I like your chin, Quipster. And you've had your hair done recently. Well done. Shall we talk about lore?
Yes, let's talk about lore, not just chins. Okay, right. Literally, for those readers out there who are up to date with the heresy, we both literally, as soon as it came out, got Echoes of Eternity. And immediately, okay, not immediately, like a few hours later, I just got a text from you, Winters, and all it said was, I've finished. We've got to talk. And I was like, I'm only halfway through. Give me a sec. Because like, it's one of those things. I'm a fast reader, but I wanted to kind of like savor the experience of this one a little bit because you only get to read something for the first time once.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
I'm a pretty fast reader, but not as fast as Kat. Like I can do a book in a day, but she'll get 2 down in a day.
Jesus
She's
Christ.
crazy fast. I know. But I guess everyone reads at their own pace. But yeah, I stopped and I savored bits. I even took a few notes here or there because I knew that we'd have a discussion about this. So we're about to spoil the crap out of it. Quipster.
Yes.
Can I ask you the question?
You may ask me the question.
I haven't got a ring or anything. I'm not about to go down on one knee. It's not that kind of question. The question is, what did you think of Echoes of Eternity? General overall feel and feedback.
Okay. I loved it. But there's always a but.
There's always a but.
I loved it, but the thing is, I am a very cut and dry, very narrowly focused person sometimes. And so when I have an idea, I'll tell you all about
Talk about your butt. Come on.
So many people know too many things about my butt. But yeah, I'm very straight and narrow, and I have a very singular concept of how I think things are. And so if things deviate from that, I can be a little bit like, oh, that's not what I was expecting at all. And I think that was definitely the case with the with Sanguinius defending the Eternity Gate. A lot of the stuff that I not had problems with but was surprised by was actually all essentially taken care of in the afterword by ADB. But yeah, there were bits and pieces where I was like, oh, that's a surprising decision you've made there. There's one bit in the book, and I'm intrigued to see your opinion on this, where I was just like, this is just ADB turning to the audience and going, huh? Do you remember this bit? Like, it was literally like almost breaking the fourth wall. And it's the bit where he's just like... I
saw a couple of moments like that.
Yeah,
there's a couple of moments like that.
There's a few of those.
Lovely.
I thought it was cool, but it was like
this moment. I want to see if it resonates with me as well.
So the one, like the biggest one, where it was like turn and wink at the audience, was when Vulcan is literally telling Magnus, "Here's a list of the things you did wrong," and it was just dude, come on, you couldn't have been more subtle about this.
There's an earlier part in the book where he says Magnus did nothing wrong.
Yeah, literally.
And then it flips to that bit later on with Vulcan. And that bit was really cool, by the way.
Yeah.
And listing the crap. It's like, no, listen. The bit that resonates, that did resonate with me because he's listing the stuff and he's just preaching the truth. This is all the things that you did wrong. And it's glorious that it's Vulcan saying it, because Vulcan is, I mean, there are Primarchs out there that people prefer, but no one dislikes Vulcan.
100%.
Vulcan's the hero character. He's the good guy. You can't kill him. And him just saying, look, and he's the builder, the logic guy, saying, look, 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 look. It was like he was breaking him mentally and physically, because Magnus kept killing him and he kept coming back and kept killing him and he kept coming back and kept killing him and he kept coming back. And in each time he came back, the clip was, at first it was hard to break, but then his wing was broken, then his thing was broken, and he was breaking him psychologically as well. He was breaking him because early Malcador said, your intent will matter down there. Your intent matters down there. His intent will find the way to Magnus. And the other thing he said to him was, Magnus was blinded by the light of his own halo. He said this earlier in the book. Magnus was blinded by the light of his own halo. That's Malcador's impression of Magnus. And then he says, so much like his father.
Yes. This is the one thing I thought about towards the end, especially. There's so much symmetry in the book. Everything has a reflection, even down to who's fighting who and how they're doing it. So you've got the World Eater versus the Blood Angel, Amit versus Kargos. You've got the Angel versus Angron. And like the way all of those fights happen even is reflective of like other stuff. Even the fight between Angron and Sanguinius, you've still got Horus talking into Angron's head, saying, "Do it, kill him. He's the threat." And the same is happening to Vulcan.
Which is good, because here's the duality of the book that you're only highlighting now, and now you're seeing it. I didn't consider it before, but you're absolutely right. There's a duality in this book, which is, if you're a Chaos worshipper and you love the whole thing and you think the Emperor's a bad guy, then it gives you 50% of the book to cheer for. And if you're an Imperial person, it gives you 50% of the book to cheer for, because even the Sanguinius versus Angron fight, Angron lost because Horus was talking to him. He's like, get out of my head. He broke his cycle. He broke the rage. If he'd have given in to the rage, this is a young Angron as well. This is new Angron. And if Angron was like, sod you, I'm going, it's Horus's insistence that was a chink in his armor.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing. Like,
what I'm saying is, if you're sorry, I didn't actually put the full stop at the end, which was, so if you're a Chaos fan, it's not like Angron lost. It's like, if we ran that 100 times and there's no Horus, then maybe Angron beats the crap out of Sanguinius, because he nearly killed him. They both used the same move on each other, which was epic. The same move, actually, that the Mortarion and the Warhawk did. Same-ish, similar strat back at the Lionsgate.
I've heard.
The Warhawk. You've read Warhawk, right?
Yeah.
So the Kargan has to basically surrender to death in order to kill Mortarion.
Yeah. See,
so it's a similar thing. That's what it gets that bad. It's not like Angron gets taken down easy, is what I want to say. You can cheer for both sides, and Kargos is an excellent character, and Amit's an excellent character, and it does tell. It does wave the flag for both sides, and does paint the Emperor in a horrible light and also in a glorious light, depending on which way you lean. So that was a tightrope. That was well navigated, very well navigated on a storytelling level. I appreciate you for that, ADB. You're a legend.
I concur 100%. I mean, there's two moments in the book where a character holds up that mirror. And this is going back to the idea of symmetries. Everyone's holding a mirror up to everyone else. There's two moments where that symmetry becomes super apparent. And you do have this kind of like, oh shit, he's right moment, even though that character's being a total dick about it. First moment that happens is Arkan Land. I love Arkan. I've heard a few people say he's so good. I've heard a few people say like, "Oh, I don't like this retcon of like the Land Raider is actually Land's Raider pattern assault tank." I fucking love that. That is
not a retcon. That is standard in Imperial Armor Book 1, which must be 25 years old now.
I have
Arkan Land's pattern Raider and the Arkan Land's pattern Speeder. He is a techno-archaeologist, and he found those STCs. That lore is older than some people who play this game.
Exactly.
It's when they were establishing the lore they came out with that crap.
Mm-hmm.
So the Land Raider was called the Land Raider for a short period of time, the Speeder. And Speeder, remember, the original ones came out in White Dwarf in lead and were pre-launched there. And then, Arkan Land was a thing for a long time.
Exactly.
And he's a great character.
Oh, he's so good. But what he's done, or what he does...
Show me the mirror.
Yeah, I love it. So basically, what he does is when he's speaking to... Not Raldoron. Zephon. He's speaking to Zephon, and he says, essentially, like, who gives a shit if you die in battle? It's what you're meant for.
Yeah.
Like, that entire speech where he lists, point by point, why it does not matter if a Space Marine dies, and it's an absolute tragedy if a human does.
Yeah.
All of that, from the outset, you're like, oh, he's being so rude about this. And then when he gets in, you're like, oh no, he's right. And then Zephon realizes... He's right.
He proves the Imperial point to a core, because that's the distinction between the forces that are fighting for the Emperor and the forces that are fighting for the War Master. The forces that are fighting for the Emperor are doing this for the Imperium. Mm. They're doing this for the Imperium of man. They're defenders of man. And the forces that start fighting for Horus do not want to be ruled by this petty bureaucrats on Terra and the Imperium. And it's one of the motivations, of course, many of the characters have many different motivations, but it's one of the primary motivations for a lot of the traitor legions, which is we're more important than them. So that truth and that holding up to the mirror is one of the, while criticizing and tearing a Space Marine apart and saying essentially you're not important, you're just a weapon, you're a missile, you're a spaceship, you're a Marine, you're a weapon, and we'll stamp press another one of you. But I'm Arkan Land. I'm a genius. Save me. I'm very important. Smashes the Space Marine apart, makes Arkan Land an absolute G, and shouts out the Imperium cause in a very, very smart way. Again, hats off to you, ADB. Don't know where you come up with this stuff. It's coming down from deep. I felt... Yeah. One of my first impressions, because you're talking about the mirror and the duality, the first impression that I got out of the book, I've got to get this out of me, because he starts it so desolately. He starts this world full of pain and talks about ancient battles, and then there's a dust and an emptiness and he carries this through for the first 5 or 6 pages, this absolute dust, this dead land. And I was caught while reading it for the first time that, was the war over? Was it ended? Did you get that feeling when you first started reading it?
Yes, 100%. I mean, I think it's especially the first 2 or 3 chapters, he really digs into the idea of these are the consequences of this conflict on this place, on civilization in this place. And it's
no one has brought it to that finer point yet in prior episodes of the Heresy.
Yeah.
So that quick change of pace from these massive conflicts to this desolation really rams home, as you said in the first couple of chapters, how much has been lost.
Yes. I mean, it's interesting. I know he spoke to a bunch of geologists and said, right, if this were happening, what would be happening to the planet? And he really goes into the ramifications of, this is how buggered Earth or Terra is as a place. Like, it had at least a facade of, like, it had some seas, it had algae to, like, sort out the air. They were kind of terraforming. Now that's all gone. It is hopeless for this world. It is a parasite at the middle of an empire. And this is the beginning of that.
He literally writes that sentence, doesn't it? It's at that point it becomes a parasite in the middle of an empire, because at that point, at the Siege of Terra, that Earth literally dies, is dead. There'll be microscopic bacterial life on that planet, and that's it. Everything else it must feed on like a carrion king. How much is lost? Exactly. And how bad? Yeah, so that impression at the beginning was fantastic, I thought, because in early chapters of the Horus Heresy, we had these vast sieges, particularly the first book, which is the whole of the Sol System War. We had these vast things in the Saturnine Gate, and then ADB goes, stop, hammer time, and breaks it all, and then just takes 99.9% of stuff out of the world and says the Horde is attacking the last gates. Dawn is trapped in his bastion, and all the way through the book, you keep expecting to hear a little snippet through Dawn, but ADB goes, "Fuck him! I'm not going to talk about him. He's caught." And he mentions every third or quarter of the way for the book that this isn't just one war. There's millions of wars going on over here and over here and over here, but we're focused in on this very personal war in the Eye of the Storm, and he keeps it personal, and he keeps it intimate, and it's only about a number of people and characters, and that's it. It doesn't show you any bigger picture stuff. It doesn't even take you to, I mean, it shows you Sanguinius and Vulcan, that side story of Vulcan and Magnus is epic, but it keeps it personal with those characters. It doesn't go to some strategic overview. He's always at camera eye view. There's a massive change from other parts of the book, and at first I found it a little bit jarring, but when I warmed into the scene and thought, okay, I'm here now, and then I'm here now, and then I'm here now, and then by the end of the book, I loved that change of pace, because it's like this slowing down and horrification. It felt to me very much like this is Infinity War. This is we're losing. It's personal. We're seeing it through Thor. We're seeing it through this person. There's a huge thing going on, and here it felt very personal and slowed down to a stop. And by the end of the book, it's like, holy shit, did he just write Infinity War? And Dan Abnett's going to do Endgame. And are they going to pull it off? Between the two of these, are they going to stick the landing so hard? I can't dream that high. I can only say that this is as good a setup as Dan Abnett could have ever hoped for. The 100%. Doors close. Everyone is ruined. They're inside. Demons are materializing inside the lines. There is no way out.
So there's so many things about this I want to talk about. Like, number one, going back to sort of the earlier chapters, I really loved the idea that, and I heard in an interview, this is what he was doing. He just zoomed in, and he stayed zoomed in for the entire book. And the big reason for that is two, really. Number one, he's the kind of author that doesn't do so much the whole zoomed out, like, top-down picture.
Yeah,
Dan Abnett's really good at that.
He does characterization very well.
Exactly.
It's his strength.
And also, we're past that point of the siege. Like, this is we're on the. This isn't even we're on the back foot. This is we've almost lost.
Yeah,
all
they're
hope
down
is
in
gone.
days, aren't they? It's not weeks or months. It's days.
It's literally. I'm surprised we survived until this morning
9
from
months.
last night.
9 months of siege.
Yeah. And at so many points in the book, they say, I'm shocked that we made it like 4 hours longer than I thought we would, kind of thing. Like, even like verbatim, it's almost that. And so to maintain that sort of like timeline, you have to zoom in on individual characters and how they're dealing with the situation. And you get those little personal tragedies. I think one of the ones that actually really hit me was the three Skitari near the end. There's 3 or 4 of them.
Yeah.
And they talk about how they give each other like presents because it's one of their birthdays. Yeah. And it's like, oh God, this really hits me because they're all about to die and they know it, but they're still doing this thing to like...
And one of the presents is a stone from the summit of Olympus Mons.
Mm-hmm.
That's a present.
I saw that.
Mars.
And I was just like,
oh, God. Wow. How about personalizing a Skitari?
Yeah. Yeah, literally. And you almost don't think it can be done.
What? Who's done that before?
A
Skitari. She's a Skitari Alpha, Sergeant equivalent. That's all she is. That's important as well. She's a she inside there. It's beautiful.
I love the bit.
I like
pretty?
It. I like it every... Yeah, I bet you're pretty under there. And she thinks about it and says yes.
Like, yes, I am.
From her point of view, with her machine parts, she feels, yes, I know what that thought. And later on, when she cracks a joke and they all stop and look at her and she says that was a joke, and then they burst out laughing. It's like, yes, a Skitari sergeant, female, is cracking jokes with the gang. Yeah, it's beautiful. Beautiful.
It really is. But it's... A lot of it does raise a lot of very interesting questions. For example, I love the fact that they zoomed in on Amit and spent so much of the story on him, because he's not really got any face-to-face time in the Heresy before this.
No, there's a bit in Fear to Tread, isn't there?
Yeah, barely. There's not a lot about him personally, and for such an important character, it's very surprising. Also, I'm willing to bet that someone forgot that Zephon is going to be the first chapter master of the Charnel Guard. So when he died,
I don't think so. I think ADB is deliberately trying to show that Zephon's going to get to the end. There was a clip or two in it, because you think he's going to die more than once, where he says, in later years, when Zephon, he drops that in there. Zephon is going to be the first chapter of the Charnel Guard, and Amit is the first chapter master of the Flesh Tearers, of course.
I'm willing to bet Dan Abnett forgot that when he almost killed Zephon, though.
Well, Zephon's back. Space Marines are very hard to kill. Look at Loken. Space Marines are very hard to kill. Khan was impaled on the front of a Land Raider in Ispan 3 Spartan assault tank, and he got better.
I mean, going back to everything that's happening with Khan in this book as well, everything that happens with Khan and Saren.
Well, he died. Khan is dead. Latara's dead.
Oh, is she?
I like the bit when she finally has a chat to Horus, and he just tells her a poem, and then she tries to say something else. And he says to her, "Oh my, you still think you're alive?" Something along those lines. Maybe not the "oh my," but it's Horus after all. I mean, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. It shows the other side, how far things have fallen.
That's another sort of duality that comes out in the book between both sides. The idea of self-delusion, because on the traitor side, it's this very physical manifestation of that. You've got the Warhound Titan pilot who's trying desperately to ignore the fact that her co-pilots are talking to her, despite the fact she knows they're dead.
Yeah,
and she's like, "No, I'm not going to look at my hands. I'm certain they are not fused to this throne." And she's not just fused to the throne; she's fused to the two of them as well.
Yeah,
and so like she is absolutely deluded because she's trying to like maintain her sense of self, and that gets replicated in things like Vulcan, because like you do have this duality again in the fight between Vulcan and Magnus, because you've got Vulcan listing off all of the things that Magnus did wrong, and Magnus going, "Oh shit, he's right." But then you have Magnus turning it around and saying, "Well, look at what the Emperor's been doing this whole time. How many empires, human empires, did we absolutely obliterate because we gave them no choice? For what? Like, the Emperor is a tyrant by every definition of the word. Like, by his nature of the things that he's doing. And you can almost hear the clicks and the cogs of Vulcan's brain as he goes, "Oh God, you're right." And this is something that ADB talks about in the afterword as well. He says, "I wanted there to be that seed of doubt in both of those characters that they placed in each other, because you do have them holding up a mirror to each other." And that's really important, especially for Vulcan, because that then sets up the idea that, well, we know Vulcan lives because Vulcan can't die. So where's he been this whole time? It's because he's got that seed of doubt now in his brain, like, oh God, maybe the Emperor wasn't right to do this. I'm not sure if I want to be part of this Imperium. I'm not against it, but I'm not sure if I can fight for what it has become. And so you've got the beginnings of that seed of that doubt, which explains where he's been for 10,000 years. I really like that. Like a lot.
Well, there isn't just one doubt in Vulcan's mind, is there? Because when he first goes into the webway alone, well, he has to fight his way through, probably die a few times, but that's cut from the story. We don't need to know that. What we need to know is he makes it to the city inside the webway, and Malkador gives him his guiding light, which is your will matter. And he sees the union of Imperial technology with the webway technology and the Eldar technology. And he recognizes as a master smiter, a builder, someone who creates things. He's the engineer. He's the Elon Musk on steroids. He will make anything perfect. He sees that the webway is even older than the Eldar, that they borrowed it as well. And his literal quote while looking at the Emperor's design, he could see what it meant. Okay, not only is the design supposed to do this, but this is what it means and this is what it's for, just by looking at the technology. and he could see it was flawed. And
Yeah,
he didn't
he literally
think if it would ever work. And he says those lines.
He almost looks at it and says, like, this looks like a massive bodge job. Like, I can't believe the Emperor made this. Yeah.
In the tep and the stuff. I don't know if this would ever work. He didn't say it wouldn't, but he's almost... the implication is not that it wouldn't work. It might, but the implication is the Emperor was looking in the wrong way, that the tech was insufficient for the question, that it was the wrong direction from an engineering point of view, that the thinking behind, the logic behind the idea that this could be done was flawed in some way. It goes right down. It says the Emperor is flawed in some way. And that was hard to swallow. Being an Imperial fan.
I mean, same. It's just, there's so many parts of the book. I mean, it's interesting. I've had a few people criticize the book for 2 or 3 big reasons. The first one being there's a lot of Blood Angels set up in this book. Like the first meeting of Sanguinius with the Emperor, the first meeting of Sanguinius with his Legion. Like all of those like little things.
Okay, my counter to that would be, I get why some people might be upset with that. I'll say it quickly, and then you can go for the second and third. My counter to that would be this is the one before we know what happens to Sanguinius. So I'm very happy for them to give him his Han Solo moment before he's frozen in carbonite. Okay, he needs his cool, I love you, I know moment. We need that from Sanguinius and his Blood Angels before he's gone. Yeah. So what's the second complaint?
There are a lot of, and I'll come back to that in a second. We'll talk about that. There are a lot of...
Hit that one first, then. Go on, hit that one first.
I love the fact that they really delve deep into Sanguinius and what he's all about, because essentially there are big chunks of the book which are, isn't Sanguinius a really cool guy? Isn't he just really nice?
Yes,
exactly. Why is there so much setup for he's the best person ever?
Yeah.
Especially considering one of the last lines about him is, wait a sec, that blade was coated in poison. Angron wouldn't use poison, essentially. And then he's like, wait, what's that all about? I can feel it in me. My theory for this is we've had an entire book of setup for Sanguinius is the best person ever. And the next book is Sanguinius falls. And he falls hard.
Yeah, the poisoned sword. Yeah, that would be cool.
Yeah. And so what would happen if Sanguinius fell to chaos in the throne room with Horus and the Emperor had to fight both of them?
That's nice. That's a very nice thing. That's a nice idea. I hadn't considered that. I like it.
Yeah. I mean,
it's open for that, isn't it? It's definitely open for that. I mean, the book literally ends on the Ultramarines contacting Terra. They're trying to. It's like, we're here. We're here.
7 days, we'll be there.
Yeah, hold out.
Like, when you hear Saren say, "Oh, I blocked that transmission from the Ultramarines," you're like, firstly, you what? A transmission from Gilliman? What? And then you hear what the transmission is. You're like, oh my god, because you know exactly what's about to happen. The universe is about to fall apart, and Gilliman's going to turn up the day after it happens.
Yeah,
it hurts. It hurts your soul to know that.
The decision he made with Sanguinius and the Lion, the 3 of them, after breaking through the Ruin Storm and destroying Cat Davin, it was a very tactical decision. There's 3 Primax, there are 3 Einsteins there, right? And they said that if we all rush back, we'll all die. Because the supply lines won't be stopped. The reinforcements won't be stopped. If we all go back, we're all dead. Yeah. And they knew it, and you can't argue with 1 Einstein, let alone 3. So that's why they deployed the way they did. The Blood Angels went back as quickly as they possibly can. The Dark Angels and the Ultramarines mainly tried to tear apart the guts. Instead of going for the head in this case, they went for the body and dug their way through the body to get to the head. Because if they got to the head, the body was just so vast, it would have crushed everything. So you've got to believe that they made the right decision in this. But by God, 7 days is a long time.
Especially
inside the walls.
Especially when literally all that's left is the door on the palace. And that's literally it.
Well, they're in the palace. That's the thing. The Eternity Gate, they're now in the Sanctum Imperialis. They're inside. The palace is the size of a small mountain.
Well,
it's
they're inside the keep.
They're inside the very keep. Yeah, it's a castle keep, and they're in the keep, but it's 40k. So the castle keep is about, I don't know, 2-3 kilometers across, probably 2-3 kilometers high. It's a big keep, but it's still 7 days, and there's still space marines and demons, and oh my, yeah. But it finishes on the ultramarines. God bless him.
Mm-hmm. That pulls at the heartstrings. You're just like, oh my god. But there's the other thing, sort of like going on top of that.
The two.
Yes.
You said that's the first thing that people moan about. So we knocked that one out of the park between us. High five. Whoosh. Thank you. Right, second.
There are a lot of unfinished plot lines.
It's the Horus Heresy, baby. What do you expect?
Exactly. I mean, there were a couple of like really interesting omissions from the Blood Angels that when I got to the end, I was like, hang on a sec. Where's Ascalon? Where's Raldaron? They're like, one's the master of literally all of the guys that protect Sanguinius himself, and the other one is the captain of the first company and one of the most important people in the heresy. They're just not there. They don't even get mentioned. It's like, what? Where are these people? I'm willing to bet they're stuck in the Bastion with Dawn. Or they just didn't get mentioned. But
Raldaron was hanging out with Dawn at Saturnine and the one after. That's where he was.
So that could be it. But he doesn't even get mentioned in the book, which is surprising.
There's too many threads to tie up. If the last 3 authors tried to tie up all the threads, all the last 3 books would be thread tying, because there's 1,000 of them out there. Yeah. The Horus Heresy is launched in plastic. It's clearly a range that they're going to support for many, many years, 10, 20 years, decades they want to support this. Otherwise, they wouldn't have spent all that time on getting all those plastic prints done and relaunching it when the series is about to end. The series is going to end, but we're going to hear these stories. There's Black Library writers out there probably lining up to write about and close out the stories for their main characters and people that they liked. I mean, the reason why Garrow's really popular and John French loves him and just kept writing short stories about him and writing short stories about him and writing short stories, and then all the people that love Garrow loved it. And now he's got his own book in the Siege of Terra series where he's going to go and have a chat with Mortarion, presumably somewhere on a zombie world somewhere, and try and smack that guy upside the head, and not because Mortarion fell from the Emperor, but because Mortarion thought that Garrow would too, which is why he asked him, which is why he brought him along with him. That Mortarion saw something in him that he doesn't see himself, and he wants to have words with Big Daddy, and I'm looking forward to that book.
That's going to be super interesting. But you're right, there are a whole bunch of plot lines that are fascinating and where they could go. A big one for me was 2 big ones for me. One, I've heard a few people say like, "Oh, everything that's happening with the Perpetuals is just filler." I couldn't disagree more. I love all that stuff. I want to see exactly where that goes.
Yeah.
Because that is Dan Abnett's like baby. That's his project.
He gave birth to them. He's gonna see them into the world as grown-up kids with real consequences. Yeah.
So whatever happens with them is going to be devastating to the universe. So I can't wait for that. But that's a big plotline that needs to get resolved. Another really interesting one is what's his face? Night Lord's not Curse, his first captain. Sevatar. So I saw an interview recently with ADB where he was talking about Sevatar. And the guy just asked him, does Sevatar get an ending? Is there more about him? Yes. So Alan Blythe, apparently the guy who created the Horus Heresy game, and wrote like whole bits of it, had a conversation with ADB where they discussed and planned out the entire storyline for that character. And so like he's got stuff to do. And so there are a whole bunch of like those kinds of characters that are going to get some serious treatment, especially in the aftermath. That I can't wait for. But sort of going back to the original point of like, oh, there's a whole bunch of like storylines that haven't been caught up with yet. The thing that frustrates me with people who have that opinion is the fact that we know ADB and what's his face? Dan Abnett were chatting every single day when they were writing these books. This is all set up for everything Dan's doing. Everything is set up.
This is Infinity War.
Yeah. Like, the traitors have almost won. They have won all the major victories. how do they come back from this? What needs to happen? It's all set up, all of it.
And
so,
well, not only it's all set up, and you can't ask the question, how do they come back from this? The other thing it gets across is there's no coming back. If Horus wins, he wins a graveyard of skulls. If the Imperium wins, then it's the dream is broken, forever broken. And we, because we know what comes, can see what it turns into. But then back there, it's just whatever anyone had has gone.
Exactly.
It's all gone.
I mean, thematically, it goes back to the first few chapters of the book, where it quite obviously states essentially what has happened here is the death of hope. The idea of hope in this universe has been killed by this conflict.
He uses the death of hope, and he also uses the end of all things.
Oh my god, I saw that, and I was like,
beautiful.
No way.
He meant it, and in its context, he means it. This is why it's Infinity War, because after the snap, the universe was different. 50% of living things gone. Everything was different. Before Echoes of Eternity, this is the snap.
Yeah.
After this moment, it's all gone. The universe is different because of what happened at the Siege of Terra.
I mean, sort of going back quickly to...
This is the end of all things.
Yeah, literally. So, like, going back to quickly, like, fourth wall breaks. As soon as he goes, this is the way the world ends, I was like, oh my god, he's taking that from Winters.
This is the way the world ends.
Literally!
He did use that one, and he also used the end of all things.
I saw those, and I was like, oh my god, he's just taken that from Winters. Like, he's just lifted it.
We know he listens to the... I don't know if he'll listen to these, but he certainly enjoys the battle reports, and he has got in contact with me in the past, and I have chatted to him. And I did have a little back and forward to him after I finished Echoes of Eternity, actually, and I hope he doesn't mind me mentioning this, because it was just a couple of WhatsApp messages. And I did mention to him that I thought the book was fantastic, and I really liked the level that zoom in, that desolation, that how it focused and slowed down on the personal. Yeah. And it felt very personal to me was the word that I used. And the word that he used in the chat again and again was intimate. He was looking for an intimate look, and an intimate look at Sanguinius's story, which is why, I imagine, I didn't say this, but it's why I imagine we have those beginnings, the very beginnings when he met the Emperor and his legion, and then we have him at the very end, at his peak. Yes. So it's a very intimate look at Vulcan. Sanguinius. It's a very intimate look at Vulcan. And it's a very intimate look through the eyes of Kargos, through the eyes of Arkan Land, through the eyes of Amit. It doesn't stray through the eyes of that Warhound pilot that pops up every now and then, through the eyes of Lotaro Sarin, who is a fantastic character from Betrayer. She's one of the kick-ass normal humans. There's a number of baseline humans in the Horus Heresy that come up, and they're so few and far between. But there's some baseline humans that the Astartes and even Primarchs bow to, and Loretta Sarin is one of them. So these little touches, that level of intimacy. Yeah, I used personal so clearly that's what he was looking for. That's the word that came out in our little WhatsApp. Sorry, ADB, if I think it just shows that you hit the mark. You hit exactly what you were aiming for, which is, it's just good. I could see why some people might. It's such a slowdown. It's such a change of focus from the previous books that upon finishing it or reading it, the pace is such a dynamic change of pace. It didn't sit well with me, but on reflection and talking it through with you, and on reflection even more, I realize over time it's exactly the sort of thing that I, as a person that's digested this crap for 16 years, really needed before the end.
Yeah.
I didn't want to finish this like, let's go. No, I need to be slowed down so I can wait now, and I can... I don't know if I really want to go there, because this was horrible. So, okay.
Yeah. I mean,
it's.
That's a big thing with. Like I say, that's a big thing with the flashback sequences, because they slow the pacing right down, because you're literally taken away from the siege at all, and you're transported to another place, and like it's a random, almost tangent diversion of a story. But it's so important.
Act 2 is like dunk somewhere else.
Yeah, it's like, and now the Revenant Legion. Like, wait, what? Hang on a sec, what? But it's so intentional, and you can see why it's so intentional, because it's set up for the Blood Angels as a legion, because you need that. Like, you need to explore them in a way that hasn't just been done yet. Like, a lot of legions have had a lot of, well, some legions have had a lot of, like, time with them to explore, like, this is the heart of the legion. Really good example of that I was surprised by was the Death Guard. The Death Guard have a lot of books that explore the heart of Mortarion and the heart of the legion.
Yeah.
What they're all about, why these things happen to them, you know, how they reacted, etc. The Blood Angels, despite the fact they are so important, haven't really got that treatment. They've had Fear to Tread, but it hasn't been that, like, character study of Sanguinius that we all needed.
Yeah, and most of the other Loyalist legions have their trilogy, the White Scars trilogy, the Salamanders trilogy, the Raven Guard trilogy, most of them, and then you have all Unremembered Empire, if you like your Ultramarines. Yeah, the Blood Angels were curiously overlooked.
Exactly.
And this is why. I don't know if this was planned or intended, but it was good to feel, maybe the people who didn't like this slow down and focus on some Blood Angels, and it's not, that's 50% of the book. Half of the book is, well, a quarter of the book is Vulcan, and a quarter of the book is all these other little threads that tie it all together. But we've had a lot of Imperial Fists. Maybe they're all Imperial Fist fanboys. Maybe they're Chapter Master Varric guys railing at the gate saying, where are my Imperial Fists? It's the Siege of Terra, after all. Well, we've had a lot of them, okay? There's been many books with many Imperial Fists up to this point of view. And they've also done, to be fair, they've also done the other side, the traitor side, quite well as well up to this point. Like you mentioned Khan. You mentioned Khan earlier. I wondered if seeing him back in this book would somehow cheapen Sigismund's victory in the previous one, in Saturnine.
How so?
Because Sigismund beat Khan, and the beautiful moment in that book is Khan's shouting at Sigismund, "You're more broken than I." Which alludes to a point that you made earlier about how we've lost so much on both sides, how the Imperial, And then Khan comes back. But it's not really Khan. Just like Loreta Saren. So now you're like, now I get it with Lucius the Eternal. Now I get it with Khan. Now I get it with... This is whatever's left of this dead corpse soul wriggling body, which was split. He's animated by a demon now. There's something inside of him from somewhere else.
Well, it does that quite nicely with just the World Eaters as a whole, because like there is kind of that almost plot hole of how are there any of these legions left after 10,000 years if all they've been doing is fighting. And it kind of does show that the World Eaters get thrown out of like portals essentially by Khorne, because like Khorne has just gone, I own you now, and just throws them out of portals at the Sanctum. And I thought that was a really interesting sort of turn of events almost.
Yeah, was that World Eaters or were they demons?
Exactly. Is there a difference now?
That's true. Yeah, that's, well, with some of them, but it's, well, the difference he also wipes away with he gives us the concept of the Horde very early. The Horde. You know, the Horde coming for the castle, the Horde against the gates, the Horde moving through the streets. Even the feel of the Horde and the movement of the Horde as Ammit is standing there looking at. We don't have the traitor's voice, the traitor's forces referred to as a horde before this. There were always legions or armies, or they were doing this or doing that. But by this time, it's just a horde.
I mean, that's the thing, actually.
I love that idea, that concept.
Yeah, I mean, again, you've got this idea of symmetry.
Because Perturabo's gone, right? Yeah. So Perturabo's like, no, fuck this, I'm out of here. So just a horde is left without him. What have you got? Sorry, go on.
I was just going to say, again, you've got this idea of symmetry between the Imperial forces and the Horde. Because...
Order and chaos. Wow, I wonder if that was intended.
Yeah, but even within the Imperial forces... everything is broken. You've almost just got this like disordered horde of defenders who are just like, we're all that's left, guys. Like, just pick a lane, pick a sandbag, sit behind it, and start shooting. Like, that's all that's left is of miasma of violence. That's all that's left in this. Everyone is desperate. Everyone is exhausted. Everyone needs a break, but no one's going to get it. That idea of this is the end of the line is so well forced upon you as a reader. Just in like the little descriptions, like there's a bit where Angron is looking at Sanguinius and he's just like, not so perfect now, because his face is all cut up and he's a bit wounded and his arm is all battered, and he's just like, like he's looking at him, and it's just exemplification of like this is the end of all things. Yeah, I fucking love that. And again, like, another thing that really got me, actually, well, there's two things. Okay, and this goes back to the third thing that a lot of people were not angry about, ironically, but were criticizing the book for, was the bit where Angron, like, begs Sanguinius. Like, he's ripping out the nails and he just goes, no! I really liked that, because for me, I saw that as almost like this moment of clarity. Like, Angron suddenly realizing, oh god, look at what I've done to myself. Look at what has happened. And he's just gone, no. And he almost like doesn't realize that he's just said that. But I don't know what your take is on that.
Yeah, that's an interesting assumption. I like that assumption. The idea that as the nails come tearing out the back of his brain. Well, I want to say tearing out the back of his brain, but tearing chunks of his brain out with it, literally, in the book. In that moment of fraction of a second of dislocation, he's himself again. And he's like, no. Maybe that's what's occurring there.
Exactly.
Or maybe Angron, before then, ADB makes it very, very clear that this is a demon in control now. And the tiny little bit of Angron is a bug on the windshield of this demon's mind, but it's there. You get a similar telling of that kind of demonic possession in The Mirror Cracked, when the demon takes possession of Fulgrim. The soul inside is a bug on the windscreen. So a bug on the windscreen, whatever's left of Angron, might scream like a bitch, might beg. He's surrounded in chaos. He's a drop of oil and then a tsunami. He's going to beg.
I like the idea.
Even fallen. So say it's just pure. Say this is what happens. If we can take it as written, if we can take it as factual fact and not imply anything into it, it says that a Primarch, if given into chaos, will beg and cry out. Will be completely broken in mind, bodies. But yes, that seems to me what chaos can do.
There's two ways of looking at it, though, and a buddy of mine pointed this out. I thought it was interesting. I'm not sure if I agree with it, but it's another way of looking at it. Angron, in many ways, has his self-identity very much linked to what the nails have done to him. That's why he batters the nails into the rest of his legion. And so for Sanguinius to be ripping that out of his head is like essentially ripping out an actual part of himself. And he's like, no, please don't do that. Like, this is who I am.
Yeah. Ripping away at his very identity.
Exactly. And then it's a kind of
showing him it's false. Look, this isn't a part of you. This is just,
And then it's a case of like, what am I without the nails? And he's just obviously not ready for that level of self-realization or self-actualization.
I think the first thing you'd feel if you had a self-actualizing moment, you're like, your Khan got better the other day. They managed to fix him. They grabbed Khan. They managed to do some surgery. They fix him. The self-actualization of the first thing, you'd probably feel a little bit sorry. You know, like, oh dear, what have I done, sort of thing.
Which is exactly.
You feel a bit bad for yourself. First thing is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean that's exactly what happens to Lotara Sarin. She looks at the world and goes, "Khan, what have we done?" Because she has that moment of self-realization, like, "Oh shit." And it's interesting that the quote-unquote actual Lotara Sarin, who's sitting on the throne, who is basically just a demon now, has absolutely no remorse, is absolutely dead certain of her course. because she doesn't have that moment of self-realization, that moment of clarity. So yeah, I think there's a number of different ways that we can look at that moment, but I like the fact that it's there and open to these multiple interpretations. I don't think it's a weakness of the book.
Chaos takes the part of you. So there's many ways that we see in the heresy how people fall. And ADB's introduced this idea with Latara Sarin that in a ship that's infested, I mean, that is infested, which a demon ship's mistress ends up controlling. Chaos takes that part of your brain, those doubts, and gets rid of it. But it's so much of you that it becomes its own thing, its own entity.
Well, it's not even that. If you go back to what happens with Vulcan, Vulcan literally says, that's how they get you. They use your strengths against you. And he realizes, like, oh, for me, they'll use my sense of mercy. And that's how they'll try and turn me.
Use my virtues against me. Yeah. Which is what happens. Fulgrim's quest for his perfection, Magnus's quest for knowledge. They use the virtues against you,
Oh, they did Fulgrim so dirty. I can't believe that happened like that. Why wasn't it at least 2 or 3 books that followed his fall, not just like 1? That just that gets me.
As far as bad guy Primarchs go, he gets the full treatment of Fulgrim. Because you don't get much from Perturabo, you don't get much from Kurz, despite him being fantastic. But you get Fulgrim's in it a lot.
True. I would say Perturabo has a really good intro for how he starts doing demon things, but he hasn't started doing demon things yet. That's the thing. And Kurz gets a lot of screen time. It's just
Kurz does get a lot of screen time, actually. Yeah.
A lot of
Secundus and all that,
Yeah. But the thing with Kurz as well is that a lot of his development comes from his Primarch novel, which is astounding. Have you read that one yet?
Yeah. There's
that.
the 2 best ones in the Primarch series. Just talking to the SEOs the other day about this is because Great Night SEO is like listened to the Kurz Primarch novel like 5 times or something. I said, well, you need to listen to the other one, the other really good one, which I think is Alfarius.
Yes, it's really interesting, that one.
It goes right back to the very beginning, and you get. The reason why it's probably the best one is because it has many of the other Primarchs in it, and Valdor, and Malcador, and the Emperor, and he has his own quest on his own as well. But because he's always there, it covers over so many questions and cracks and doubts and things. It's just good. It's
very good, but I also love the fact that it's ambiguous in a very specific way, because it's the only Primarch novel written from first person, and Alfarius is not exactly the most trustworthy of guys.
No. And it implies at the end, because this is the other great bit about that book. The first line in that book, the very first sentence is, I am Alfarius. And the last sentence is, I am Omegon.
Yeah.
Not only is it that good, the very second line after I am Alfarius is, that is a lie. And it implies at the end when he finds Omegon that no one knows about Omegon apart from Alfarius. And by no one, I mean the Emperor and Malcador. Because you got to play regicide with me, not so that you can block your mind from other people's thoughts, but that you can block your mind from the Emperor's thoughts. You need to be the hidden blade, the sword no one sees coming. And Alfarius does okay and plays regicide with Malcador until he beats him easily, because Malcador can no longer read his mind. The implication is no one else knows about Omegon. And when you go back through the Horus Heresy, you'll realize that the Omegon encounters, there's no other Primarchs around. There's never Malcador around. There's never the Emperor around. What is Omegon?
Yeah, exactly. Is he a twin? Is he something else?
The Emperor found Alfarius at the beginning, gave him a good look over and said, right, you're good, and told Malcador to train him, and he did. I mean, he's about as trusted as it can be. What's Omegon?
Now you're like poking me into things that like I hadn't realized.
Back to the conversation that we had with them being in a vat. Half the vat got here, and they took some of the soup out and threw it over there. Anyway, yeah. So these sorts of things. How did we get onto this? We're talking about Echoes of Eternity. Unless you want to follow that rabbit hole down with a thought.
Well, no, I was gonna take it back to Echoes of Eternity.
What was the number one complaint? Did we do 3? Or we did 2? Did we do them all?
It was.
Did you think of another one?
Yeah, it was the flashbacks and all the Blood Angel stuff. The fact there are so many undone threads, and I think those are the main ones.
We might have tied in the third one along with all the conversation that we had.
I think so, yeah. But going back to like the throne room and the Emperor and Malkador and all of that, I do think it's fascinating that we know literally. Oh no, that's what I was going to say. Going back to the throne room, one of the bits that really hit me in the book was when Vulcan and Magnus are having that chat, and Magnus goes, I was given this impossible ultimatum by the Emperor.
Yeah.
And Vulcan goes, no, that's not what happened.
Yeah.
Like, you begged the Emperor to save you, and he said no, because he couldn't trust you.
Yeah.
And it's this really interesting, like, dissonance.
Very good.
Yeah, because... Oh, go on.
You're just like, what? Who's telling the truth? 1 minute, I just read a whole thing.
I read a whole book about that. Like, what?
What?
Yeah. And so, like, there's this...
I refer you to the answer the right honourable gentleman gave some moments ago when Malkador said to Sanguinius, he's blinded by the light of his own halo.
Yes. That's what I was going to say. There's two
Magnus
ways
sees what he wants to see.
Yeah. Well, I think...
The Thousand Sons had those little chittering warp demons around them all the time. I forget what they're called.
Tutelaries.
But tutelaries. They literally had familiars, chaos familiars, with them by the Council of Nicaea, for a long time. The Thousand Sons never saw them for what they were. They were blinded by the light of their own halo.
It's that level of self-delusion again.
Like his father's son.
Mm-hmm. But it's interesting because there's a few different ways that you can look at that. Like, the first one is Zench pulled the wool over Magnus's eyes and essentially forced him to see what he knew Magnus would want to see. The second way of looking at it is Magnus perceived what he wanted to perceive in that meeting. And then the third way, which I think is kind of the most interesting, is that meeting happened exactly as Magnus thought it did, but Vulcan was the one who was deceived. Because the Emperor doesn't speak in words. The Emperor speaks in thoughts, emotions, and he speaks telepathically because he's so powerful. So you hear what you expect to hear in the way you expect to hear it. That's why Arkan Land hears from the Emperor, like the Emperor talking about the third and the fifth Primarchs and the 12th Primarch, not their names.
I like that idea. Yes, because they've said throughout the heresy that the Emperor appears as he's meant to appear. Like, so the Space Marines, he appears as the classic Emperor, but he often appears as a wise old man or a guy in a hood or blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
He's appeared in lots of different ways. And maybe the implication is there that Vulcan saw what he saw and Magnus saw what he saw.
There's actually an even deeper part to that because, and this is something that the custodians talk about all the time, the Emperor lies. And he even lies to them. And they know it. And I think they're the only people who know it. And so this could just be a case of the Emperor being like, right, if I have to have this conversation and Vulcan is standing right here, I have to lie to Vulcan. I have to make him perceive what he wants to perceive here.
Yeah.
And
well, there's also the very thin narrative that the whole of the Imperial truth is a lie, which I don't see that, by the way. But people say that all the way through.
Well, no, the objective truth is the Imperial truth is a lie because demons do exist.
No, it's not a lie.
Go on.
It's not a truth either. It's not designed that way. So the Imperial truth... Okay, so there's levels. It's the heresy. So, okay, you're right. at your level, the imperial truth is trust in science, reason, blah, blah, blah. There's no such things as God and demons, which there are in this universe. This isn't our universe, by the way. We're talking about 40K, where there really are demons. There really are gods and demons. So it's a lie. In our universe, you know, that's a whole other, and it's down to your individual beliefs. But it's a lie. But that's only on that level. I don't think that that's what the imperial truth was for. And I think there's a couple of, and I can't remember, but it's implied a couple of times in the heresy that the imperial truth was for something else.
Yes.
So, what did the Emperor of Mankind want the imperial truth for? It was to wipe out all religious beliefs. Why is wiping out all religious beliefs important? Because that directly affects chaos. The imperial truth is a weapon against the fight of chaos. And lies will be used and truths will be used. It's a weapon. So that's what it is at a lower level. And at an even lower level, at the Emperor playing 4000D chess all over the place, in his fallback stalemate position, remember he's a far seer. He sees further than any other human psyker. That's his great power, one of his great powers. In his stalemate position, in a fallback position, if you've got a galaxy that has been wiped out of religion, what religion's been wiped clean, and you're in a stalemate position where everyone's dead and everyone needs a god to believe in, who do you believe in when you only know one? The imperial truth is also a beautiful fertilizer. It's a beautiful cleansing fire. So in the fallback position of the Horus heresy, if they just hold on there, then faith just grows naturally out of there. And faith in one of two things, either the Omnissiah or the Emperor. That's because they're already sprinkling water on those seeds at the time of the Horus heresy. There are no other faiths. There isn't religion in the green jelly monster behind Mars. There isn't a faith in Thor, the god of lightning. There isn't a faith in whatever. There's thousands of human religions. They're all gone, and across the galaxy they're all gone. There's one faith, and that's the imperial cults, and it's already been watered. And so the imperial truth is a lie, is okay, yeah, but on a lower level it's a weapon, and on a lower level it's not even a weapon, it's a nuclear fallback option if shit goes south. You're going to believe in me anyway, and look what happened.
Which is exactly what happened.
Galaxy that's the galaxy we live in now.
And this is the thing, it goes back to what we were talking about last time, the plans within plans within plans. Like, if that doesn't work, then this can work. If that doesn't work, then this can work. It's not just weapons as in a space marine weapon, as an exterminatus weapon, it's psychological weapons as well. And the imperial truth is one of the greatest weapons that the Emperor ever deployed. I mean, it stood him in good stead in the end. Kind of. Maybe. We think.
Well, it's so not intrigued. A plan, as in, hey, it'll make the perfect religion and everyone will have cats. It's... But it's, as far as weapons go, remember, we've already agreed that he is willing to sacrifice 10 trillion people on a planet if 10 will live. If the option is 0 or 10 out of 10 trillion, he'll choose 10.
Yeah. I mean, going back to sort of like the general thrust of the book, I am so intrigued as to what happens next. Like,
okay, shall we scratch that? What do you think?
I mean...
Go wild.
Oh, okay.
Tell me a story, Quipster. Tell me a story. What would you do?
What's
your elf IC Legolas?
This is the thing. So, like, there's a lot of things that are established in what happens next, and there's a lot of things that are established that are contradictory. For example, in the throne room, in the fight between the Emperor and Horus, there's a few instances where it's a custodian that runs into the throne room and tries to take out Horus and gets vaporized by Horus with mind bullets. And that's the thing that makes the Emperor go, okay, let's take off the kid gloves and just batter Horus. Or it's a guardsman, or it's a blood angel.
Well, we know the story of the guardsman. That was dealt with in Saturnine. So that's where that...
Was it?
That's the implication there. That the story that a guardsman stood to protect the emperor from a child. That's the story was planted there. Maybe there's many stories like that.
Exactly.
But what they did there is say, right, I've done that, so I don't need to do that again if I have to. And yeah,
true. But there's a lot of different branching pathways.
What's going to happen now?
Yeah, I mean, there's almost like little things. Like, for example, when the defenses of the Lionsgate spaceport open up on the Chaos Fleet, one of the first things they say is, the shields are down on the Vengeful Spirit.
Yes.
Now, were they down because of the defenses or because someone dropped the shields?
Oh, I definitely think there's going to be a... Yes. There's a perfect opportunity for a hero moment there.
Mm-hmm.
There's Dan Abnett writing a book. The shields were dropped in a hero moment. It's Luke. Luke is there. No, it was Obi-Wan. He drops the shields. And then gives his life to Vader. He's got... Is he going to... There's a ball that's flying towards him from 16 years ago. I think Dan Abnett's going to take a swing at that one, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I love the fact that the Echoes of Eternity ends there, literally. So Echoes of Eternity ends.
Mm-hmm.
The implication as well at Echoes of Eternity is the Emperor teleports them. The reason why the shields on the... So, Angron breaks in, they're overrunning the gates shut, right? The last sequence in front of the Eternity Gate, 10, 15 minutes of time? Spread out across 50 pages?
Yeah.
10, 15 minutes. Suddenly they're inside. We need to close the gates. Here's the implication. That's when the Vengeful Spirit's shields dropped, and that's when the Emperor teleported off the planet. And that's why the demons could get inside. So when you find out hours later that the Vengeful Spirit Shield's spirits have dropped and the White Scars are firing on them, I think ADB isn't writing the second to last book in the Horus Heresy. When he starts off with, this is the end, this is the way the world ends. ADB's written the last book in the Horus Heresy, and Dan Abnett's going to write the other half of the last book in the Horus Heresy, and they end around the same time.
So it's like two concurrent timelines from different perspectives.
How did the demons get into the palace? The Emperor's Aegis was keeping them out no matter what.
Well,
so the Emperor's Aegis stopped. That's what happened.
Yeah, because Magnus was attacking it, but
he stopped Magnus.
Exactly. Vulcan stops Magnus, so why are there still demons in the Sanctum?
The Emperor's Aegis stops then, about 150 pages before the book ends. You find out the shields are down an hour or so after they're down. Yeah, Dan Abnett's going to knock that one away, and we're going to have a scene on the Vengeful Spirit with the Emperor and other people inside getting bombarded by their own people. It's going to be great.
Interesting. Okay. That's fascinating.
And like Vulcan and Guilliman is saying, don't worry, hang in there for 7 days. And the Emperor's like, yeah, nope. Thanks for that. Can you shut up a second? I'm trying to kill Horus right about now.
That's fascinating. I mean, it's... what was I even going to say about that? It's really... Oh, God.
That idea just came to me, by the way. That's why I love these conversations. I was able to find that through this conversation with you. So thank you.
It's okay. I'm like entirely taken aback by this, because now I'm thinking like, oh God, yeah.
Oh, 1 minute.
Right. Yeah. Like a lot of things sort of put together.
Why does this book have to lead to the next book? Why?
But then it's a case of like, as soon as those doors close, then
so Sanguinius is going to get up there late, right? Without Big E, maybe he's up there already.
Interesting. So then that could be the case of the Emperor teleports himself and a random smattering of whoever he can find, like telepathically.
Well, he's supposed to go up there with Dawn, right? The OG story is that Dawn, Sanguinius, and the Emperor go up there.
Yeah. Does he take Valdor?
I'm not sure.
I don't know if he does.
I actually don't know if that's ever been confirmed or not. I imagine Valdor would go no matter what. It's Valdor. It's his one job. So if the Emperor's somewhere else, well, not his one job, but you know what I mean, his primary function. They all have a primary function. All of the Primarchs and the 21st Primarch, or the first Primarch, had one too. Yeah, but they get scattered, don't they? That's the idea. Yeah. And that
that's
dawn
the story.
Comes across them. Yeah. So that isn't how it happened at all. That's just the propaganda that's told later.
Precisely. I mean, there's so many things that could happen on the Vengeful Spirit. Like, I'm willing to bet Loken is there with them. I think there'll be that kind of symmetry.
Fury of Magnus, we got to see Loken and Garrow.
So they're there. We know they're there.
I wonder if that knot is tied in the Garrow short story novella.
With the both of them?
Yeah, and the Space Wolf and you've got basically 4 chapter masters there, by the way. You've got a Salamander chapter master from the Fields of Isfan 3. You've got a Space Wolf head grey wizard dude, over the top psyker. You've got a Lunar Wolves chapter master and a Death Guard chapter master from... Yeah. That's like Calgor, Dante, you know, that's these guys.
Yeah.
Logan, all going together. Yeah, we're going to get that story, I think. Why put them together? Why bring them in the epilogue at the end of Fury of Magnus, Loken and Garrow, with those 2 characters? Why not? Why? So that author, Graham McNeil, another legendary author, he writes big battles very, very well. He's put those 2 together at the end of the story on purpose for someone, right? So the next story can just pick it up.
There's a lot of that going on. A lot of, like, little story threads that are just like, now I can take that and put that in
Marvel cutscenes. This is the MCU pre-Infinity War. Little Marvel cutscenes at the end of every book. It's like, yeah, sure, John French, I can put this in here. Yeah, sure, Chris Ray, I can put this in here. No problem. It'll be my cutscene.
That's true. I mean, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, there's another little story thread that they haven't done anything quite with yet. It's all the Dark Angel stuff. So the idea that
so Hariel and Ezekiel and all that.
Yeah, so the idea that the reinforcements that what's his face picked up from Caliban.
Oh, Causwain,
yeah. The reinforcements he picked up, none of them are actually loyal to the Emperor, but he doesn't quite know it.
Yeah, and so after the series is over, we're gonna get something about the Rock, right, in Caliban. We're gonna get it's just money. You know, the Iron Cage. Who doesn't want that? All the Iron Warriors fans out there, and let's not forget that the Iron Warriors, they've got a lot of fans amongst our Chaos Brethren. I see those yellow silver shaded tanks all over the place. They want to get their revenge on the Imperial Fist. We're going to see these stories answered, but it's not, the heresy is not the time.
No, I mean, that's going to be for the Scouring, and that's going to be a whole thing by itself. But it's going back to the throne room and what could happen. I mean, there's so many ways you could go with it. Because it's not going to be Sanguinius gets killed, the Emperor sees that and goes, well, got to kill Horus, and then kills Horus. That's not what's going to happen. I think we all know that. I
really like your idea of Sanguinius. We've seen the best of him, and now we'll see the worst of him. I really like that idea. I'd like to see it, and then even saying I'd like to see that offers lots of different opportunities. It opens up the opportunity if the Emperor causes it, so he unleashes him on Horus. That Horus causes it. That Horus causes it, so Sanguinius leaps on the Emperor. There's lots of different things that could... The chaos inside of him, and he attacks the crap out of both of them, and we have a 3-way. What the hell is going on here? We do always like a Primarch 3-way. It's even better, it's a 4-way, and Dawn comes in through the door. The last time we had a proper one like that was again back to Unremembered Empire, and another Dan Abnett book, so we know he's a man who can handle a good 4-way. Again, these are balls that are in the air. How many of them will he hit?
It's just fascinating. It opens up so many avenues. Is there that situation where it's Sanguinius and the Emperor versus Horus, and they're winning, but then Sanguinius turns because Khorne gets his nails into him, and the Emperor has to kill them both, and that's how he's mortally wounded. Is the Emperor mortally wounded? That's the other thing. Is he? Is he just... Because there was a really interesting thing I saw from a Dan Abnett interview. The Emperor has to sit in the Golden Throne to keep that warp portal closed.
Yeah.
The Emperor is the thing powering the Golden Throne. He doesn't need it.
Yeah,
to live.
Dan
He's a
Abnett said it.
perpetual.
Yeah, it isn't that the Golden Throne is powering the Emperor; it's that the Emperor is powering the Golden Throne. I like that
Exactly.
idea.
And so, is it just the case now that no one still exists to take the Emperor off the Golden Throne because he can't do it himself for whatever reason, and he's just stuck there because no one knows to do the next step?
Yep.
Yeah, that could be part of it. Like, there's another thing as well that I think is a really interesting sort of like story thread, and I'm intrigued to see where they go with it. Like, at the end of the heresy, Dawn is a broken man. He is absolutely devastated. He is just a shadow of his former self. And there's a whole bunch of books that actually just talk about this. There's, I think, Apocalypse. I think it's by Josh Reynolds, where one of the Primaris Marines who was around and met Dawn gets asked by another Marine, one of the Firstborn, and the Firstborn says, "Oh, what was it like meeting a Primarch?" And the Primaris Marine just has to lie to him and say it was wonderful. But when he's actually remembering back, he's like, "I can't tell this Firstborn Marine that when I met Dawn, he was a broken shell of a person, and he was diminished beyond anything I could ever have imagined."
Yeah.
Like, what happened to Dawn specifically to make him that way? To make him go so crazy and lose all reason to just fall for the iron cage?
Yeah.
Because he's a Primarch, he's a genius, and he just fell into a trap because he wanted to. Was it just that he failed? Or was it because of the final words the Emperor gave him? And what were those words?
Or is it death through absolution? He just wanted to die.
Yeah.
And wanted to take his legion with him because he had sinned. And the man who would never break
Broke.
Maybe he's broken in the throne room. Maybe that's where it's broken. That's where.
Yeah.
Maybe Sanguinius sides with the Emperor, Dawn sides with Horus.
Shit. Fucking hell. Oh my god, if that's the twist, how the hell would they get to that point?
Well, with Dawn a broken man, like I sided with him, I believed it, Dawn breaks. The anvil finally cracks. The rock, the Imperial Fists are the rock upon which the Imperium is built. And that rock is cracked, and Dawn is cracked and loses it. He doesn't have to side with Horus, like best buddies high five, but just lose it. Maybe Horus shows him the absolute truth. Maybe that's what happens. And we have some kind of clash. Dawn kills Sanguinius. Sanguinius kills her. And that's Dawn's... Yeah.
Well, you
Maybe
could.
Dawn kills Sanguinius. I
I was going to say, like, what if you did end up with a situation where Dawn and the Emperor end up in Horus's throne room? Sanguinius falls to the rage, so Sanguinius has to fight Dawn, and the whole time Dawn is like, "Oh God, I am outmatched here. This isn't good." Gets the absolute stuffing beaten out of him, and then he has to watch, broken and wounded, as Sanguinius and Horus fight the Emperor. And the Emperor...
No. The only way to break Dawn is to make him do something that he would never do. That's the way to break him in spirit. He's the rock. You got to crack that rock. So what's the one thing the Dawn would never do? Dawn would never attack the Emperor.
He would also never run.
Or run. So you make both of them happen. And you make him do it willingly. You make him want to do it. I want to attack the Emperor. And then maybe run from Horus, attack the Emperor. Or attack the Emperor, then run from the Emperor. You do that, that'll break Dawn. That cracks the rock.
What would you have to
And
do?
Imperial Fist players would always say, I'm playing Rogel Dawn in my army from before the siege. This is the good Rogel Dawn. We've seen Primarchs crack and turn to chaos. Why have we seen the last of them do it? Have we? I still count a couple of Primarchs left. Maybe one of them turns to Chaos right at the very end. So the internet's been buzzing about Sanguinius turning to Chaos. You talked about it this evening about him finally falling and succumbing to the Black Rage. Why does it have to be Sanguinius? Why can't it be Dawn? Why can't Dawn be the last one to fall?
I mean, to be fair, there's that whole alternate timeline someone did of the Dawnian heresy. I don't know if you've seen that.
Yep. Yeah.
Like,
why can't Dawn fall? If he's the rock, you crack the rock. You've gone all the way down to the core.
Yeah.
I don't want to go into the Dawnian heresy, but yeah, you can Wikipedia it and look it up, and there's loads of stuff about it. But yeah, what if Dawn fell?
I think that is absolutely fascinating.
Do you remember after the Infinity War ended, everyone was asking, well, what could they do? They could go back in time, they could do this and do that. And that went on for 6 months.
Yeah. And then they did all of those things, plus a whole bunch of other stuff that no one had ever thought of.
Like they'd planned it out. Every day.
I was speaking to someone about this a while ago. It's fascinating to be living in these times. Like, we're going to look back at this and go, I was there when they released that final book.
I was there the day Horus slew the Emperor. And what's the odds on Dan Abnett opening up the last book with the words, I was there the day the Emperor slew Horus? The first lines in the first book, the first lines in the last book.
I am almost certain that is how that book starts.
And then people 5-10 years time will just know. They'll just know, like people who've never watched. They're missing a moment. This is a cultural moment in 40k.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's one of those things, like, we live in interesting times. And, like, when you're living through them, you don't quite realize, like, this is that moment. And then when you look back on... Like, it's like, we're going to look back at this in 10 years, and there's going to be new people getting into the hobby. And they're going to be like, oh, wow, what was that like? Like, discovering X about this storyline.
Yeah.
And we're all going to be sitting there like, our minds were blown.
And the answer is, go and read the Siege of Terra now. Go.
Yeah. I'm interested to get your opinion on this, actually. While I wave some blue tack at you. I've done a start to finish of the Horus Heresy, but like a reading list that skips all the crap ones. Yeah. I'll send it to you after this and get your opinion.
How many crap ones? How many have you chucked out?
At least 10.
Yeah, because I did. There's one on this channel, where if you go somewhere and it's on one of the playlists somewhere, like Horus Heresy reading order, and I tried to boil it down to the shortest number. So you could, if you wanted to start now, you could do Horus Rising, and in about 12 books, about I think 8 or 9 books end up at the Siege of Terra. I've made it really short for people, and then go back, and if you then after doing the beginning, the middle bit, and the end bit. So you've got to do the first few books. You've got to do Unremembered Empire and Betrayer, and then you can get to the end. There's a couple of other ones that I recommend. Yeah. If you want to get through it as quickly as possible. But when you're talking about a reading order and getting rid of the crap ones, well, you can start at 3, definitely. But 10 is a nice number. I'd be very interested to hear the list. I mean, what's number 1? Like, do not read. Is it Damnation of Pythos? Or is it Battle of the Abyss?
It's Damnation of Pythos, then Battle of the Abyss, because they're both useless.
You don't need them.
It's just why?
I mean, Battle for the Abyss at least is the first time we're introduced to the Thousand Suns, so you get that going on.
Yeah,
but the Damnation of Pythos
has no bearing on anything.
If you read it as a standalone novel, great.
It's a short story. Okay. No, it's a short story that's 600 pages too long.
Yeah.
It just goes on and on. But then there are absolutely key ones, like Master of Mankind. Yeah. Like, you need to read that one.
Yeah. If you don't understand that there's been a fight in the way, if you don't watch Ragnarok before Infinity Wars, you miss, you got to understand that there's a fight in the webway. Why he's sat on the throne? Why isn't he getting up and jumping around? And that just ramps the threat all the way to the top. So you go, okay, this is very big. Oh, this is not, again, it's at 40k, so it's turned up to 11. It's so big, the Emperor is wounded by Drachnian, the echo of the first murder. You see the Emperor hurting, in pain, struggling.
I mean, talking about
and the
that as well.
Custodies and the Sisters of Silence and other people have been fighting, see it too.
I mean, there's another fascinating thing about that. Talking about plot threads that we need to, or it would be great to see the end of. What happened to Ra? Like Ra and Endymion, who had Drachnian implanted within him, who ran off into the webway. Yeah. Like, what's he doing? And how did Abaddon end up with Drachnian? Like,
yeah, I think ADB will probably. I strongly suspect that he'll nail that one on the head in the third of the Black Legion series.
Yeah, I think he's pretty much said as much. Like, this is where I'm going with that.
Yeah, I can see a lot more. So there's going to be books after the Heresy, but I can see people tying more and more and more as the lore continues to expand, as they look at the Imperium Crusade and start writing in there. Not only will ends be tied, but some lucky ends will be tied directly to the future, directly to where we are now. Again, Aaron Dembski-Bowden. I had to him one more time. The Night Lords trilogy, which we've also talked about, the sense of time, the sense of dislocation in there. How come this warband has been fighting for 10,000 years? Well, for some of them, it feels like a week. And some of them feel every day of the 10,000 years. And our hero character or the main POV character feels like it's been a few hundred. Yeah. So like you're going to get these loops tied into the story arc going forward. But
exactly. Yeah, I mean, there's only one sort of question I have now, sort of like to tie things up. One of the things I know you've criticized ADB for in the past is the fact that, especially in the Black Legion novels, it talks about, you know, living in the Eye of Terror and, you know, these Chaos Marines going around and doing stuff, but there's remarkably little chaos in those books. Like, there's very little in the way of, like, demons doing things and, like...
There's not a lot of chaos in the Eye of Terror in the Black Legion books.
Exactly.
And criticised is a harsh word.
Point it out, then.
When I am a poor human staring into the light of the sun, I could criticise the sun being a bit too hot sometimes, particularly at the middle of July in a desert when I have no water. But who am I to criticise the thing that brings life, that breathes all life into the Horus Heresy? Every author has their strengths and weaknesses. Every author, and then great authors are truly exceptional in some areas and very good in other areas. Truly great authors don't tend to have very many weaknesses, or don't even, like... I think Dan Abner and ADB are some of the best authors I've ever read out there ever, and I'm comparing to the Tolkiens of this world and the David Gemmels of this world. I was just thinking that, and the Douglas Adams of this world. I mean, this is some of the most. And it's not just because I'm a 40k fan, because I've spoken to people who've got into the hobby through the Black Library series and through reading books. And Liam has a very personal story about a guy he met at the London Underground at work, who basically, Liam was on a lunch break. He's engineer at London Underground or London Railway or something. He's on a lunch break, and the guy opposite him is reading a book in the Horus Heresy. And, and Liam's like, "Oh, you play 40k?" And the bloke's like, "What?" He's like, "No, you're thinking it." He's like, "No." It's like, what? And the guy's, "No, I love this series. I've been reading it for 10 years. You admit it's a game." And then Liam was like, "Well, look on my phone. Here's the thing. Here's YouTube." He's like, "What?" And he literally got in through the hobby through. He didn't know. He did not know. Criticism, no. But go on.
I was just going to say.
I say the chaos thing. The chaos thing is the chaos thing. I have to wrap up. Mm-hmm. He's got better and better and better at inserting the chaos into the character. And with Echoes of Eternity, you mentioned earlier how he knocked it out the park with this one. I mean, the dislocation, the Warhound pilot, the Loreta again, Kargos again, when Kargos is sane to when he slips into Nails mode. He's much better at layering these not characters, but he's much better at layering the chaos in there in a new and interesting and unique way. And earlier, I think he was just... Earlier, I see a writer who really wants to tell a story. And they're fantastic stories, and I'm happy to be swept along. But, yeah, he's deeper. Chaos is all around him now. That was a painful book, Echoes of Eternity.
Oh,
that
God.
must have been hard on him in places.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many times reading that book where the sense of like desperation and sorrow gets to you, and you're like, oh God, you know what?
Yeah.
The bit where Arkan Land breaks down and he just looks at Zephon, tears in his eyes, and says, they killed my monkey. Yeah. I think everyone read that and just went, oh God! Oh!
The Skitari's dead and they killed my monkey.
It's just, that's
and it's
so
the first
brutal.
time in his emotions, yeah.
Like, yeah, that hit
the
hard.
layers to ADB's writing has always... his writing has already been layered, and Dan Abnett's writing has always been layered, but in this one he layers in the chaos quite well. I mean, when I read Graham McNeil's chaos sometimes, such as the Uriel Ventrius books or Fulgrim or other books when Graham McNeil does full Graham McNeil chaos, I worry for that man's soul. He seems quite happy throwing himself down into deep, dark places and delighting in it, the innards, and swallowing them down and playing. And, yeah... There's not very many men who can do chaos like Graham McNeil, and I'm grateful for it. Yeah. So,
not many men who are that dead inside that they could just handle it.
He's got a power for that. Yeah. So yeah, it's that's the answer to the question, which is the ADB. That's my response to your mentioning, criticizing a god who walks amongst men.
I really hope. Yeah. I don't know if I want ADB to watch this and like react. Because we've been gushing about it.
If you are watching ADB, hit me up. Just let me know. You don't have to write a comment or anything. Just let me know. And knowing the size of my damn ego, I'll probably hit you up in about a month's time and say, "Can you go watch my thing, please?"
And I'll just get a DM the next day.
He's a busy man. Do you know how much people want his time and the things and the books to write? Yeah. He's probably on the next book already.
Oh, 100%.
And he plays. I know he hobbies. He's been a gamer, and that's how he got into this. I don't know his
mainly an AOS
at all, but I've heard that he got into this through being in the hobby, through enjoying the hobby. I mean, Graham McNeil was one of the OG rules writers and things, wasn't he? He got in through working in Games Workshop back in the day. Dan Abnett's come through the channel of, well, he was a big writer and a Marvel comic writer and beforehand.
Yeah. I think on that note, this is the way the world...
It was at this point, me and Winters were about to wrap things up. So we turned off the camera, but we kept on talking. And in the process of talking, we realized, oh my God, there's more things we didn't talk about. So we turned the cameras back on and did the next part.
Hang on, I gotta put these back on. Okay, we finished the podcast and then we came up with this. So, say that again.
Okay. So, no, you came up with an idea first. Like, we were doing the what-ifs. We were trying to out-what-if each other. And your what-if was...
So, yeah, my what-if was, okay...
The Emperor goes up there already, right?
Yeah.
That was how it starts. The Emperor's already gone up there.
Yeah. So the shields go down the Vengeful Spirit. Yeah. The Aegis goes down. The Emperor teleports, opens his eyes, immediately teleports straight into the Vengeful Spirit because he sees the opening. Goes straight for Horus. The doors close on the Eternity Gate. Sanguinius turns around and goes, hang on a sec. Because he's psychic. He can't feel the Emperor anymore. Runs around, finds some custodians, and they're like, the Emperor's gone. He goes, oh shit, I know where the Emperor is. He's on the Vengeful Spirit. Or they find out some way.
Yeah.
He then contacts Dawn. Dawn and him and some reinforcements desperately get up to the Vengeful Spirit. They get up, and they don't know where in the Vengeful Spirit they are. Yeah. The Emperor is with Horus.
Lots of epic moments fighting through the Vengeful Spirit. 2 Primarchs going absolutely nuts. Yeah. It would be beautiful.
But in the process of fighting his way to the Emperor, Sanguinius, having been poisoned by Angron's sword, falls to Khorne. Yeah. The Emperor murders Horus. He wins. But then Sanguinius steps into the throne room, and he's a vessel of Khorne. And he fights the Emperor, and he's the one that mortally wounds the Emperor.
Yeah, and Dawn has to kill Sanguinius, and that's what breaks Dawn. And I thought that was a good idea. And then I thought about your idea earlier on, well, about who is really dead. And then I thought, what is the ultimate twist? The ultimate twist could be this. What if Horus isn't dead? So all of the things that you talk about happen. And it doesn't matter what happens. I mean, maybe Sanguinius and Dawn try and kill the Emperor because he doesn't want to kill Horus. He keeps him alive. Horus is alive, and Horus has been sat on the golden throne for the last 10,000 years. The last trillions and trillions of people that have been praying to the Emperor of Mankind have really been praying to Horus. And he's the battery, because he is the vessel, right, of the pantheon. He's a cup filled up. He's a conduit for chaos. They explain this again and again and again throughout the Siege of Terra, and also in Echoes of Eternity. In this conduit of chaos, the Emperor imprisons on the golden throne, and you said maybe the Emperor can't leave. They don't know what the step is. No. Horus is on the golden throne. He can't leave. He's trapped there. A fate worse than death, and Horus isn't dead, and the Emperor's not dead. And what does that mean for 40k? And that's an idea.
The Empire is literally built on lies.
Yeah.
Oh, God damn, that's good.
That's a twist.
I really hope we didn't spoil anything. It comes up and that's what's happened.
Who knows? People had these conversations before Endgame came out, and it was even better.
Oh, God. Okay, and now that is how we end things.
Bye. What do you think? What do you think?
Yes.
Tell us below your... I don't just want what you think. I want the worst or the most egregious or the most... turn it up to 11. How bad could it get? How good could it get? Conspiracy theories. I want to hear them all below, please.
And that's the way the world ends. Thanks for sticking around. I appreciate that was quite the ramble. If you have any questions about lore or just any of the things we discussed or anything else really, the best place to get me is on Instagram. If you go @QuipsterNerd on Instagram, you'll find me. Best place to hit up Winters is probably his Discord. You get access to that if you become a member of his channel. If you have any suggestions of things you want us to talk about, put them in the comments down below. We read all of them. But yeah, we'll see you next time.